I'm Doug Boynton, and you're listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition, highlighting the week's news and stories happening across our area. Here are some of the top stories in this week's program. The current path to Sandbridge doesn't satisfy Virginia Beach. The city wants another path there, but the talks have been tumultuous. An $8 million grant aims to help archaeologists who are preserving Jamestown's uncovered history.
We are making discoveries every day about our nation's beginnings, and all of that is at risk.
And Naval Weapons Station Yorktown and Dominion Energy are partnering to bring a small nuclear power plant to help power the station. We'll get into these stories and more, but first, this news update from NPR. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Hikers and outdoorsmen beware, a rare tick-borne disease has been spreading into the mid-Atlantic from its traditional hold in the Northeast. WHRO's Catherine Hafner explains what you should expect.
Babesiosis is a parasitic infection similar to malaria. Epidemiologist Josh Burnick with the Virginia Department of Health says it popped up here about a decade ago with just a few isolated cases. Then,
all of a sudden in 2022, it broke the cycle and we saw 4 cases. 2023, we had 7 cases. And that's when we were like, okay, well, there's something definitely going on.
Tick expert Holly Gaff with Old Dominion University says babesiosis is likely repeating the southward movement of Lyme disease, which comes from the same tick species.
Some diseases will rip through an area very quickly, and this is one that's a little slower. So I think it's just the timing is right for that wave to follow behind.
She says ticks aren't going anywhere, but you should scan your body for them after spending time outdoors and watch out for flu-like symptoms. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The Navy is expanding well testing for so-called forever chemicals in Hampton Roads. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh has more.
Residents living near the Naval Support Activity Hampton Roads Northwest Annex are being offered free well testing for a group of chemicals known as PFAS. Last year, the Department of Defense adopted a new standard for drinking water, which has triggered a new round of testing, says geologist Cecilia Landon.
We have one property that we identified that is above the September 2024 DoD interim action levels. That property has since been fitted with a whole house point of entry treatment system.
Dubbed forever chemicals because they don't easily break down in the environment, the most common use in the Navy is firefighting foam. Several area bases have shown high levels of PFAS over the years. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
The James River Association launched its 12th season of James River Watch, a water quality monitor that runs to Labor Day. Spokesperson Linnea Bennett says nearly 100 volunteers will collect samples.
Our volunteers are collecting water samples that show us things like bacteria levels as well as water temperature, turbidity, so how clear the water is, and other data points that help river users assess their risk when they're thinking about recreating on the river.
How far up and down the river will the volunteers gather information?
So our James River Watch map stretches the entire James River watershed. We have 38 water quality monitoring sites across the watershed, and we also have partners who provide data to us from key tributaries. So we've got data coming in all the way from closer to the headwaters out to the Chesapeake Bay.
Is this information useful for swimmers, boaters, anglers?
All of the above. We recommend that anyone who's planning to recreate on or near the James River take a look at the James River Watch map results heading into the weekend. We post water quality data every Friday going into the river, so you can see what the most recent bacteria levels were. You can check turbidity, get a sense of how clear the water is going to be, and as well as the temperature.
What am I forgetting to ask?
One thing I'll add is that if you're interested in getting results delivered right to your inbox, you can visit jamesriverwatch.org and sign up for our weekly email, so you'll get alerted as soon as results go live.
That's Linnea Bennett with the James River Association. A single winding 2-lane road connects the Sandbridge community to the rest of Virginia Beach. WHRO's Sienna Morales reports that the city wants another path into Sandbridge, but that plan has stalled.
Sandbridge Road leads to popular summer destinations, including a beach, a nature reserve, and an enclave of vacation rentals. But when the road is blocked, as it was in mid-May, the community is cut off.
There was an accident, and the road was closed for 18 hours.
That's Vice Mayor Rosemary Wilson.
So no one could get in and out of Sandbridge.
She says it's an issue for tourists and residents' safety. The city funded a project to build an extension onto Nemo Parkway, adding about 1.5 miles to connect it to Sandbridge Road. But construction has been delayed for years by environmental assessment requirements. Last month, the Federal Highway Administration issued a notice of intent estimating that an environmental impact statement would be completed by May 2027. After last month's accident, Council discussed lobbying federal representatives to move forward with the project sooner. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
Millennials are leaving Southwest Virginia. Although the latest demographic trends indicate a change may be on the horizon, WVTF's Michael Pope has the details.
Millennials are more likely to leave Southwest Virginia than stay. That's been the trend for years, but now that might be showing signs of changing.
It's not a win, but not nearly as bad of a loss as it looked like just a few years ago.
That's Hamilton Lombard, a demographics researcher at the University of Virginia's Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service. He says that the long-term trend is that Southwest Virginia has been losing population for years.
Particularly the millennials, they've had a large share go to college and graduate, but there are relatively few opportunities for college graduates in Southwest Virginia's economy. So they've lost a large share in the past. What's been really fascinating to see since the pandemic is that loss really shrink. And in many cases now, those Southwest Virginia counties are actually pulling in more young adults than they've lost.
High housing costs and the spread of remote work during the pandemic has changed the dynamic. It hasn't flipped it yet, but it's getting there.
It's still shrinking in the coal fields. Outside of the coal fields in Southwest Virginia, it's actually growing now. And even in the coal fields, it's barely shrinking. It was losing thousands during the 2010s. It's down to hundreds now.
For now, Northern Virginia is losing young adults and rural Virginia is gaining them. In a few years, Lombard says that might end up flipping assumptions about where young people go after they graduate college. I'm Michael Pope.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, coal dust has been a lingering issue in South Newport news, and now a new art exhibition is highlighting its impact. But first, the Virginia Department of Health has announced the third confirmed case of measles in the state this year, the second one in Charlottesville. We get more from WMRA's Randy B. Hagee.
The patient is a child under the age of 5 who developed symptoms after being exposed to the previously confirmed case of measles in the Charlottesville area. That person was a teenager who had recently traveled internationally. Public health officials say there are 2 sites in Charlottesville where the child could have exposed others. Sugar Bear Ice Cream on May 31st between 4 and 7 p.m., and the Lowe's on Woodbrook Drive on June 1st between 1 and 6 p.m. A VDH epidemiologist previously told WMRA that the measles, mumps, and rubella, or MMR vaccine series, which is usually administered by age 6, provides lifetime immunity. Charlottesville and Albemarle County have some of the highest rates of vaccinated kindergartners in the state, at more than 95%. If you are unsure about your vaccination status, you can request the record from your local health department or on the VDH's website if you were vaccinated in Virginia. They can also help you locate a record from another state. If someone thinks they were exposed to measles, the VDH asks them to notify the local health department or their doctor. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
Archaeologists are racing against sea level rise in Jamestown, and they've received an $8 million grant to do it. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports that it's part of an effort to locate the area's as yet uncovered history.
The money comes as a respite for the Jamestown Rediscovery Foundation, which lost $300,000 in federal funding cuts for environmental initiatives and flood resilience efforts. It will help pay for installing a flood berm and pump station to fight flooding that is making archaeology harder, which Collections Director Michael Lavin says is happening more often.
We are making discoveries every day about our nation's beginnings, and all of that is at risk.
Jamestown officials expect the majority of the 400-year-old historic site will be inundated in the next 50 years if nothing is done. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
The FBI ousted 2 veteran Virginia agents in what critics are calling a political purge. WHRO's Barry Graham has the details.
Stanley Metter led the Richmond field office. Michael Feinberg was a top deputy in Norfolk. The New York Times reports Feinberg was friends with a former agent whom FBI Director Kash Patel labeled part of the deep state in his book. Virginia Senator Mark Warner says the moves reflected administration willing to undermine the integrity of our federal agencies in service of political loyalty. Feinberg, in a resignation statement, called the Bureau an organization that had started to decay. The dismissals follow pressure from conservative allies of President Trump critical of FBI leadership. Barry Graham, WHRO News.
Residents in southeast Newport News have struggled with coal dust for years. WHRO's Catherine Hafner reports that a new art exhibition highlights the dust's long-standing impact.
The exhibit, called Evidence, Coal Dust in Hampton Roads, is part of a larger Coal Dust Kills campaign led by the University of Virginia. It displays photos, maps, and oral histories detailing the effects of pollution from local coal terminals. Adrian Wood with UVA's Repair Lab points to printouts of newspaper articles dating back to 1927.
That's the kind of thing that gives me chills and haunts me at night. People who generations ago were talking about this, trying to get things done, and hoping that something would be done by now.
Nathaniel Kurtz, a local pastor and community activist, says they want to amplify voices previously silenced in the historically black neighborhood.
So the art exhibit is giving voice to those individuals who otherwise didn't have that.
The display is up through July 9th at the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center in Newport News. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The USS Gravely returned home on Monday. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh explains it's the first Navy ship to deploy as part of a stepped-up mission to the southern border.
USS Gravely, with its crew of 330 sailors, returned from a roughly 90-day deployment. The destroyer worked with an embedded U.S. Coast Guard team. On May 25th, the ship seized 840 pounds of cocaine at sea, says Captain Greg Bjorn.
We fly the Coast Guard flag, and then we're able to do law enforcement operations as the Navy, which is not typically the way that it's done for the Navy.
USS Gravely had just returned from the Red Sea before being deployed to the border. It was the first Navy ship to deploy as part of President Trump's executive order, which increases the number of active duty forces used on the southern border. Captain Bjorn says the ship remains on call. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
Newport News city leaders and housing advocates cut the ribbon last week on the first phase of a new mixed-income housing development in the Ridley Place neighborhood. WHRO's Sienna Morales details what's next for that community.
The 155-unit development has 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments with balconies overlooking the new neighborhood springing up.
Legacy Landing is not only a collection of new buildings, it is the transformation of the former Ridley Place into a vibrant, modern, mixed-income community.
That's Newport News Vice Mayor Curtis Bethany. Around 200 families used to call the neighborhood home. Newport News received a $30 million housing and urban development grant to rebuild, and around 35 families so far are expected to return. The second phase is expected to be complete by the end of the year. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
No tax on tips was part of the Republican platform last year in the presidential election. Now, WVTF's Michael Pope tells us it's becoming a topic of conversation on the campaign trail for governor this year.
Republicans are hoping that voters will respond to a campaign promise to get rid of taxes on some income for service workers in the tourism, restaurant, or entertainment industries. This is how Republican candidate for governor Winsome Earl Sears concluded a recent stump speech in Northern Virginia.
No tax on tips. We're going to try to get rid of that, too.
Megan Davis at the Commonwealth Institute says it's a bad idea to give restaurant servers a break when you're not giving a break to the dishwashers, too.
Some low-income workers wouldn't see any benefit. You can think of a restaurant server making the average wage in Virginia, which is actually higher than what a home health care worker or a child care worker makes on average in Virginia. And they wouldn't see a benefit from that proposal.
Also, she says it's an invitation for shenanigans in other industries. Lawyers, for example, could arrange for their payments to be in the form of a tip to avoid paying taxes on their income. Michael Pope.
Naval Weapons Station Yorktown signed an agreement with Dominion Power, which may bring a small nuclear plant to the base. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh has more.
The agreement signed Friday would allow the Navy and Dominion to explore building on base a small modular reactor and other options such as a solar farm. Ed Bain, president of Dominion Energy Virginia.
To be crystal clear, we believe the new nuclear has to be part of the energy mix if we're going to be able to meet the demand going forward.
The agreement has been in the works for 18 months. Money for alternative energy projects is available in the Inflation Reduction Act. The Trump administration has been pushing the military to explore small nuclear reactors to power some Army bases. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
Several James City County residents are concerned about the cost and community impact of a new government center. WHRO's Nick McNamara breaks down those concerns.
County supervisors approved the estimated $190 million center's permit at a recent meeting, with final design still to come. Several residents criticized the project at the meeting, questioning the center's price tag and its necessity. Kirsten Davis worried it would bring more traffic on a road she says is dangerous.
I told my husband, if this goes in, we can't raise a family here. It's not safe.
Officials say the county needs the space to meet the community's service needs and that renovations would be similar in cost. The population has nearly quadrupled since the current center was built in the 70s. Vice Chair Jim Eisenhower says the question is,
are we going to spend your money wisely and get a quality product that lasts a long time, or are we going to have to be forced into doing an inferior product that's going to cost as much money and not serve as long?
Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
A new report says moving the Department of Juvenile Justice under a different state agency likely will not improve the programs it offers to incarcerated youth. The report comes as the State Inspector General's office says it will review mental health services being offered to children at the Bon Air Correctional Center, Virginia's only state-run youth prison. Here's more from WVTF's Dave Cantor.
Research for the nonpartisan report included interviews with Department of Juvenile Justice staff, state cabinet members, and national experts. State Senator Barbara Favola is chairperson of the Commission on Youth and requested the Inspector General investigation. She said the organization and Director Amy Floriano need to put a greater focus on rehabilitation and that the Department of Health and Human Resources is better equipped to provide those services.
I think they have good programs, but in the presentation they made to the Commission on Youth, Floriano did not specifically say that each child was given a full, not just a full evaluation, but a full complement of all the services that that specific child needed.
The report presented Wednesday indicated DJJ is currently providing rehabilitative services similar to what could be offered if the department was transferred. State Senator David Marsden also sits on the Youth Commission and previously was director of the Department of Juvenile Justice. He says the change could fix some things, but
I don't know if it's the right thing to do at this point in time in Virginia.
The General Assembly gave DJJ a December 2024 deadline to offer an analysis of its rehabilitative services, though it hasn't yet been published. I'm Dave Cantor.
Parents know getting childcare is a challenge even as Virginia takes steps to improve the system. And while accessibility and quality have both increased thanks to record state spending, the two candidates for governor have their own ideas on how to meet the challenge. Here's more from WVTF's Brad Kuttner.
We listen to our friends talk about how much they're paying for childcare. You know, it's an extra mortgage, and we just pause.
That's Tamisha Williams. She's a Richmond area consultant who works from home. Her wife is a school teacher. They currently rely on Williams' mother to look after their 15-month-old when they've got work. It's a solution, one they don't love, but they're making do.
I would be looking for the option that allowed us to have enough money to save, to try to save. Like, that's where we're trying to just even start right now. We are just trying to ride the wave and pray.
Williams is far from alone. According to state data, there are about 12,000 families on the child care subsidy wait list. Those are parents who need child care and could qualify for state funding to use it. That number is likely much higher when you add in parents looking for spots in the private system, thanks to staffing shortages across the industry. Pre-pandemic, Virginia took early steps to address the growing demand for childcare, with then-Governor Ralph Northam pushing numerous reforms. Since then, bipartisan efforts, including some by Governor Glenn Youngkin, saw radical changes, including massive state investments and the development of new quality measurements.
I'm bringing home a baby.
For more on that system, I stopped by Sprout School, part of the Richmond YWCA in Richmond's South Side.
That dynamic conversation, this interactive play, well, it looks like it's just a lot of fun and so dang cute. There's a lot of brain development happening here. My mommy be so proud of me.
That's Rupa Murthy. She runs the Sprout Centers in Richmond. She was describing the interactions teachers are having with the kids they care for.
Ouch! It stung me.
It's sing-along time in the infant room where 3 teachers are overseeing 5 infants. This is between diaper changes and feedings, all of which are reported as part of the state's new quality measures. One Sprout teacher, Terry Robinson, has worked in the childcare space for 30 years. She remembers the older state childcare regime and said, despite the increased reporting required through the new measurement system, the changes are for the best.
It gives parents peace. Okay, I may not be able to be there, but I know what's going on with my child.
But quality improvements don't mean much if supply can't meet demand. Pandemic-era staffing losses are among hurdles facing Virginia's early childhood education system. According to the Virginia Department of Education, the child care teacher turnover rate is about 40% a year, meaning 4 out of 10 teachers are brand new. And the average salary, $17 an hour, is on par with fast food jobs in many parts of the state. And there's no diapers needing to be changed when you work at Chipotle. Sprout's Richmond locations are currently down 15 teachers, and that's after a recent job fair led to 5 new hires. Every open teaching position means fewer open childcare slots, and Murthy said their wait list is already 700 families long. 2 people who could address these problems are Virginia's candidates for governor. Democrat Abigail Spanberger said affordability is the biggest challenge.
I would make sure that my administration's working with the General Assembly to invest in the types of workforce development and training programs, particularly for early childhood educators, and would work to incentivize those students to perhaps choose careers in that space.
Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican, has a plan called Winsome Cares. Clear the child care waitlist, attract and retain educators, and expand public-private partnerships. She hopes it will not only beef up the child care workforce, but also attract job creators who
not only have workforce talent, but their employees aren't worried about what's happening with their children while they are at work.
Meanwhile, back at the Sprout School, my attempts to speak with infant Kai, who had just crawled in my lap, may not have been very successful.
What's up, Kai? Wait, Kai, how do you like daycare, buddy? You like daycare?
But I hope it counts towards healthy brain development. In Richmond, I'm Brad Kuttner.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Catherine Hafner, Steve Walsh, Sienna Morales, Ryan Murphy, Barry Graham, and Nick McNamara. WVTF's Michael Pope, Dave Cantor, and Brad Kuttner, and WMRA's Randy B. Hagee. Thanks as always to Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed, and you can get your news updates at WHRO.org, the WHRO smartphone app, and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton. Stay safe. Be well.